Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Good evening, and may the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. Also, greetings to all the 144,000 living saints who have been scattered abroad. This is our episode number 5 on the subject, the opening of the seventh seal. Now I would like to read to SR on page 193. It says here, some have applied the seven seals of the 6th chapter of Revelation to the church in the New Testament time. But the symbols are contrary to the application. So in this reading, we can easily discern that there are 7 seals on chapter 6. I would like to read again to SR 193. Some have applied the 7 seals of the 6th chapter of Revelation to the church in the New Testament time, but the symbols are contrary to the application. So the absolute fact is that there are 7 seals on chapter 6, by which some have wrongly applied or misapplied the 7 seals on chapter 6. So let us study now carefully the 7 seals on chapter 6. Now I would like to read 2TG number 14. Let's read the statement. I think 2TG number 12. 2TG number 12, page 21. It says, the first 9 verses of chapter 1 contained John's introduction to the book and is a brief summary of what he saw. So we have chapter 1 from verse 1 to verse 9. That is the introduction of John to the book of Revelation. The remaining verses of chapter 1 contain the Lord's introduction to the revelation. So, the remaining verses, meaning from verse 10 up to, I think that is it, verse 21. From verse 10 up to verse 20, these verses are the introduction of Jesus Christ to the book of Revelation. So, eleven verses. So the first 9 verses, accordingly, is the introduction of John to the book of Revelation. But the remaining 11 verses, from verse 10 to verse 20, it is the introduction of Jesus Christ to the book of Revelation. And it says, after which in chapter 2 and 3 is given a special message to be delivered to the 7 churches. So, there are 7 special messages to be delivered to the 7 churches. Now here in page 24, in 2TG number 12, it says, chapters 4 and 5, we see contain a scene of a special event which caused the book to be unsealed. That which came out of the book is, in the fullest sense, the revelation of Jesus Christ, of the one who only was worthy to open the book. Thus it is that the revelation of Jesus Christ begins with the 6th chapter and ends with the last chapter of the book. The chapters in which are recorded the things which the breaking of the 7 seals disclose. Yes, the revelation consists of the things which were sealed with 7 seals. And it says, it is clear now that it is the revelation of Jesus Christ which God gave unto him. That is, to Jesus, God gave the book. Jesus took it, broke the seals with which it was sealed, and laid open the things which no one could reveal but he. The 7 seals, therefore, cover all the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, and consist of the things which came out of the book. The revelation, moreover, is in 7 parts, because each one of the seals disclose a certain part of the revelation. The first seal disclosed the things recorded in chapter 6, verse 2. The second seal disclosed the things of verse 4. The third seal disclosed the things of verse 5 and 6. The fourth seal disclosed the things of verse 7 and 8. The fifth seal disclosed the things of verses 9 to 11. The sixth seal disclosed the things of verse 12 down to the 8th chapter. The seventh seal disclosed the things of chapter 8 to 22, inclusive. That all these chapters are continuation of the 6th chapter is seen by the fact that every chapter begins with a conjunction end. Now, going back to 2TG number 12, page 24, What is the special event mentioned here? It says, chapters 4 and 5, we see contain a scene of a special event which caused the book to be unsealed. So with such a special event, the book had been unsealed according to the shepherd's rod. So, and secondly, the shepherd's rod declared clearly that the revelation of Jesus Christ in the fullest sense is the revelation of that book which is sealed with 7 seals. Now, I would like to read track number 15. Let's read. Track number 15 on page 9 and page 10. It says, the first and most important thing that takes place in this solemn assembly is the opening of the book. It should be remembered too that the book is sealed with 7 seals. Revelation 5, verse 1. It being in 7 sections, each section individually sealed. 7 seals in all are consecutively broken, permitting each section to unfold its own contents. The first seal or section of the book disclosed the things of Revelation 6 verse 2. The second, the things of verse 4. The third, the things of verse 5 and 6. And the fourth, the things of verse 8. The fifth, the things of verses 9, 10 to 11. The sixth, the things of verses 12 to 17 and chapter 7. The seventh, the things of chapter 8 to 22. Thus, the seventh seal contains chapters 8 to 22, is immediately seen by the fact that each chapter is contained with a conjunction end. In other words, the Revelation, save for the first 5 chapters, is but a reproduction of the things which were on record within the seals, and which, as a result of the breaking of the seals, were pictorially displayed in John's sight. Now, we already read, brothers and sisters, in 2SR 193, that there are 7 seals on chapter 6. SR page 193, saying, some have applied the 7 seals of the 6th chapter of Revelation to the church in the New Testament time, but the symbols are contrary to the application. Or in other words, such application is wrong. To apply the 7 seals on chapter 6 only in the New Testament. So, the the seven seals, or let us study closely now, the seven seals on chapter 6. Therefore, the statement in track number 15, page 9 and 10, the chapter 8 onwards is a reproduction of what had been shown by God to John on chapter 6. The word reproduction meaning to reproduce or to make it again. So that's what it means by the word reproduction. So if chapter 8 to 22 is a reproduction of the things which were on record within the seals, so the entire seven seals on chapter 6 must be reproduced on chapter 8. There is quite difference between the seven seals on chapter 6 and the seven seals on chapter 8. The seven seals on chapter 6, it is the seventh seal which had not mentioned. But the seven seals in chapter 8, it is only the seventh seal is mentioned. But the mere fact, accordingly, in track number 15, page 10, that the events recorded on chapter 8 to chapter 22 is only a reproduction of what had been shown by God to John on chapter 6. The seven seals on chapter 6. Now, here in 2TG, number 12, page 30. Yes, read again. 2TG, number 12, page 30, it says, the contents of the seven seals, therefore, comprehends all mankind and must begin with Adam, the first man on earth. This fact is again particularly noticeable from the fact that the things which the first five seals revealed are covered in 1, 2, or 3 verses. It says, respectively, whereas the last two seals, which contains to the things that pertain to the judgment of the living, to the people who must know that their cases are on trial, are quiet long. The record of the things which the sixth seal reveals is 22 verses long, and the seventh seal is 15 chapters long. 2TG number 12, pages 30 and page 31. So the shepherd's rod declared clearly that the last two seals is pertain to the judgment of the living. Now in 2SR 202, it says, as there are seven seals in consecutive order, it is clear that our world history is divided into 7 different periods. The judgment begins with the first and ends with the last. Evidently, the first 6 seals complete the cases of those who were dead preceding the judgment and while it is in session. But the 7th sealing period, being the last, must concern the living. So the 7th sealing period, being the last, must concern the living. Now, we already proven with facts that accordingly, there are 7 seals on chapter 6. But the 7th seal, the 7th seal on chapter 6 is the judgment of the living to the last constituent of the altar or the 6th seal, which are to be judged while living. And that is the reason why it is called judgment of the living, because when their cases are on trial in the heavenly sanctuary, they had been judged while living and then destined to die. So that is the 7th seal on chapter 6. The statement saying in 2 SR 202 that the 7th sealing period must concern the living. So, let us distinctly separate, brothers and sisters, the 7th seal on chapter 6, which is called the judgment of the living, because that is the 7th seal, judgment of the living. But the judgment of the living on chapter 6, the 7th seal on chapter 6, is pertaining to the saints who are to be judged while living. And after being judged, they were destined to die. Now, let us read track number 3. On page 20. It says here, plainly, therefore, the judgment is to begin and the sanctuary to be cleansed, not before, but after the fulfillment of the period for those appointed to die. The judging being consistent with the records found in the books of heaven. The names, therefore, of those who are found unworthy without the wedding garment are blotted from the books. Thus is the sanctuary cleansed. Track number 3, page 20. So to repeat again, the shepherd's rod made it so plain that the cleansing of the sanctuary, or the last and the final day of atonement, by which all the names of the wicked will be blotted out, cannot be accomplished not until the proceedings of those who are judged while living is completely ended. According to that reading, brothers and sisters. So we need now to dig deeper this event those who will be judged while living. Let us read 2 SR. (162). 2 SR page 162. It says, the cases of all who are sealed from 1929 to the final close of provision will be investigated before the throne in the heavenly sanctuary while living. The investigation commenced after the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. Those who are sealed from 1929 to the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9, close of provision, for the church, are living saints, 144,000 in number, who shall never die, translated without tasting death. Now, it is very important now to study closely what fulfillment of Ezekiel 9 mentioned here. The voice of inspiration, very plain that the investigation of those who will be investigated in the heavenly sanctuary while living is after the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. So we need to study closely what is the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. Thus, the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9 refers only to the slaughtering, the 7 days slaughtering. Is that the only fulfillment, which we call the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9? Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. Let us analyze closely first the sequence of events. That midnight slaughtering, or also the midnight deliverance of God's people, the half-hour silence, the 7 days slaughtering, that event is after the little time of trouble. Now let us read early writings. Page 33 and page 34. I saw that God had children who do not see and keep the Sabbath. They have not rejected the light upon it. And at the commencement of the time of trouble, we were filled with the Holy Ghost, as we went forth and proclaimed the Sabbath more fully. This enraged the churches and nominal Adventists, as they could not refute the Sabbath truth. And at this time, God's chosen also clearly that we had the truth, and they came out and endured persecution with us. I saw the sword, famine, pestilence, and great confusion in the land. The wicked thought that we had brought the judgments upon them, and they rose up and took counsels to rid the earth of us, thinking that then the evil would be stayed. And then it says, in the time of trouble, we all fled from the cities and villages, but were pursued by the wicked, who entered the houses of the saints with a sword, They raised the sword to kill us, but it broke and fell as powerless as straw. Then we all cried day and night for deliverance. And the cry came up before God. The sun came up and the moon stood still. The stream ceased to flow. Dark, heavy clouds came up and clashed against each other. But there was one clear place of settled glory when came the voice of God like many waters, which shook the heavens and the earth. So this is the vision in early writings, page 33 and page 34. That accordingly, at the commencement of the little time of trouble, the 144,000 living saints were filled with the Holy Ghost. That is very plain, brothers and sisters. They were filled with the Holy Ghost. Inscribed in past tense, we were filled with the Holy Ghost. Now, that is the fulfillment of the outpouring of the last and final Pentecost. And in this reading, we can immediately discern that the outpouring of the Holy Ghost precedes the little time of trouble. For at the commencement of the time of trouble, the saints were already filled with the Holy Ghost and they proclaimed the Sabbath more fully. But accordingly, in the time of trouble, we all fled from the cities and villages. Why is it that God's people live into the cities and villages or they departed from the cities and villages? The only tenable conclusion is that they had already finished their work. Here in the Old Symbolic Code, it says here, one Symbolic Code, number 14, page 6. And this portion, brothers and sisters, is grossly misinterpreted by many Davidians, more particularly to those who are residing at Waco. I would like to read. Hence, before that time, it says, the top of Carmel must have been green with much pasture. Otherwise, there would be nothing to weather. That is, though Carmel has now plenty of pasture, present truth, when probation closes, it shall be deserted. Whether it will be deserted, meaning it will be withered. For says the Spirit of prophecy, in the time of trouble, we all fled from the cities and villages. Now let us focus first to this portion. Truth is truth and sense is sense. 1 TG number 6, page 32. Let us have them both. Look at how perfect the description given in the Bible as explained by the shepherd's rod, by which the shepherd's rod called it wholesale deception. Now let us read 2SR. Page 98. It says, the name of blasphemy. The name of blasphemy. And then it says, and upon his heads, the name of blasphemy. That is resistance of known truth. Expression of defiant, impiety, and irreverence towards God or things held sacred. Mocking God's personality and authority. The prophet Isaiah, looking forward to this time of wholesale deception, headed by so-called spiritual guides, says, and in that days 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. Brothers and sisters, this is a figurative speech. The statement, we will eat our own bread, meaning the present truth by which they considered to have in their movement is their own. It was not given by God.